Welcome back to Eyes Wide, the podcast, where we talk about what it takes to succeed and grow and dominate in sales, leadership, and life. I'm Craig Palmer, and today is going to be a very special episode because I have the opportunity of having a conversation with someone that I hold near and dear to my heart, both professionally and personally. This individual, he and I have been through virtual figurative war together. He's someone that I recruited very early on. I think he might have even been my very first commercial sales hire. And so he's someone that I very badly wanted to be able to have a conversation with because in the spirit of what this podcast is, it's about allowing people to kind of dream big and think about what it is they want to do in life. If they're in a certain role, is there a different role that they might be more apt to or something that they've been thinking of and wanting to explore? And so by having this guest on, it is going to be the most authentic, real conversation you could ever imagine in getting someone's thoughts on what it was like to step away from a big, legitimate monster company and venture into the foray, the idea, the uncertainty of a startup role. So without further ado, I wanted to welcome Mr. Dan Duffy to Eyes Wide, the podcast. Dan, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, man. This is great. Long time coming. Finally, I make the cut. Finally, I get the interview. This is great.
So, yeah, it's been a little bit. I actually don't think I've seen your face in quite a while. We've spoken, but I haven't had the opportunity to see that face that I love and adore in quite some time. How have you been?
I've been good, man. I've been good. Rearranging the office a little bit, getting ready for summer, doing some work on the house. Just adding more and more to the plate that I usually just have trouble managing.
So I distinctly remember. So you and I, for our audience, let's go back to the beginning of you and I and how we met. And this is something I think for me, it kind of depicts the atmosphere and the kind of the culture I was hoping to create at the company that we worked at together. And why don't you go ahead and tell the story of how we first met and what our first interview was actually like?
Okay. Yeah, so take us back to July of 2019. I think I got a call on like July 3rd from you. And you're like, yeah, I got this great new technology I'm promoting. We're going to get FDA approval. It's this neuromodulation device indicated for patients who have class 2. I'm like, wait, what is it? Like, oh, it's a neuromodulation device. And I'm like, all right, okay. I'm thinking like an external patch stimulator. I'm so not, up to snuff on what neuromodulation was. So I think I hung up. I think you called me back a week later and you said, listen, we got to meet. Let's just get together. I'm seeing my folks out in Long Island next week. I'm only there for Saturday and Sunday, but let's just meet somewhere on a Sunday morning. And I'm like, okay. He's like, how's this Sunday morning? It's like July 15th. I'm like, I'm at Fire Island with the family, but he's like, oh, you can get away for an hour. And I'm like, okay. He's like, meet me at the Ronkonkoma train station. I got a 15-minute layover of my train there. I'll see you there at 1:00. And I'm like, all right. So I didn't even tell my wife until that morning. I'm like, Melissa, I got to go. She's like, what do you mean you got to go? It's like you just get in the car and drive. Like you have to walk to a ferry, catch a ferry to an Uber. So I go to meet him and I'm in like board shorts, a tank top and sunglasses and a hat. And he's literally wearing the same exact thing. Right. And I'm like, all right, we're meeting this Dunkin' Donuts, like a train station Dunkin' Donuts. And we sat down.
Yeah, this is not a nice train station. This is not a nice coffee shop. This is a dump.
Yeah. And I remember distinctly like your energy and your vibe. And I'm like, man, this guy, what is in his coffee? Because I need to. And you were so passionate. I remember it. And I was like, it was awkward from the start, or, awkwardly different from the start and like in a refreshing kind of way. And that was the first one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the not secrets, but one of the kind of attributes we needed to figure out early on were these people that kind of had a little bit of weird sicko-ness to them, where they wouldn't be startled or look unfavorably upon doing something unfamiliar or different, like meeting on a Sunday at a train station at a crappy coffee shop for an interview. Even better is it's a great way to kind of figure out what someone's intent is. And you were not the easiest person to recruit, and you were interested, but obviously at that time, no FDA approval yet. And so there was a lot of big leap of faith that you needed to take. And you can get involved in startup ventures that aren't quite that level of a leap of faith. And so there are different startup ventures, especially in the neuromod setting. I mean, all over that spectrum. But I knew, because being from Long Island, being from Suffolk County, the East End, I know what Fire Island is. I know what it's like to be vacationing on a barrier beach. For those of you don't know, Dan mentioned the fact that he had to get on a ferry. There is no way to drive. None. Zero. And I remember I was seeing my folks, and I was talking to my folks, talking to my mom, and I'm like, I think if I can get this dude to actually show up at Ronkonkoma train station, I think I can get him to join the company. I think that might be the hardest deal.
He's pretty desperate. I was desperate for a new challenge, something exciting, something that just, was outside of the day-to-day monotony, right? And this was something that like the path hasn't been, the road hasn't been paved yet. There was so much uncertainty, which was exciting about it, And I think I always said it comes down to three things, right? The men you're with, the mission you're on, and the money you make, right? And I feel like at my previous company, I was working with a great team and the money was outstanding, but the mission I was on, I was so unfulfilled, and I was just looking for something to fulfill my day to day, starting out with you and CVRX. We had two of the three things. We had the men and we had the mission. We didn't have the money, as evidenced by canceling Netflix come May of 2020. But this is the grind I was looking for. This is the grind I thrive in. A small percentage of people out there who do what we do that actually thrive in these chaotic environments. And this is where I do my best work, where I'm also happiest at home, even though it's the most chaotic and stressful. From the outside looking in, people are like, this is nuts. But for me, this is it. Like, this is kind of where I thrive,
I love it. And I think that's a little bit of that sickness that I was looking for, Dan, when having a conversation with you, because you do need, I mean, I don't want to kind of be insensitive, but there has to be a little bit of something. I think the word unfulfillment you mentioned is a big one. And I think that's a big piece of what it is I like to do and talk to people about and try to really bring about. If someone's feeling fulfilled in their life, likely they don't have much interest in this podcast. They don't have much interest in me or a discussion with me, because they're living the life that they set out to live, and they feel fulfilled. And I think we should all feel fulfilled. Unfortunately, especially those of us that have gone down a certain path with regard to our careers, you get a job and you start to have some success, you get some more experience, you're then able to use that as a stepping stone, you get a different job, a better job, higher pay, maybe a little bit more responsibility, and that continues to escalate over the years. And then fast forward, you get into your 40s, your late 40s. I think you and I are about the same age. And all of a sudden you're looking back or looking down, and you're saying to yourself, oh man, like, I was on a path. Am I still going down the path that I desired? Am I still checking off the boxes that I wanted to check off? And you could be fulfilled in certain ways. I know that you are really close with your family and you get a lot of fulfillment out of your kids, and that's extraordinary to see. But I would imagine you still have to have a little bit of hunger elsewhere to keep that edge, to keep that chip on your block. It can't just be the fact that, like, you and I grew up in Suffolk County, so that automatically makes us a little bit chippier than the average bear. But there's got to be something that keeps you going, right?
Yeah, of course. If I was locked in the house with my wife and two kids all day for 7 days a week, I'd probably go insane. So I try to keep my days full, right? My days full with challenges, and I try to ensure that I can dedicate 3 to 4 hours a day or a night with my kids, whether it be, driving them an hour, back and forth to soccer practices or these games, and, these commitments from all these academy teams now. It's not like it was when we were kids, right? Yeah, soccer practice on Tuesday from 3 to 5 at the local middle school. Now it's like, these practices are 45 minutes from your house for some of these teams, and it's like, but at the same time, it gets me in the car with her. I get to watch her at the field for an hour, and I get to check out. It's good. And then at night, my son he's 3, so he is just, he is doing camel clutches on the dog. He's trying to, he's an animal, and it keeps the nights full. So these days are long, right? Anybody has, kids in a full-time job, they get it.
I love that you're referencing the camel clutch with your son. I think that's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
important.
I'm
It's
trying
a big rite of passage to know what a camel clutch is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's getting, yeah, we're watching the old school wrestling. He's enjoying it. So it appeals to him.
Ivan, who is that? The Iron Sheik?
Iron Sheik.
Sheik. And Nikolai Volkov? Is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's got the, who are the two brothers? They walk around like this.
The British Bulldogs?
Yeah. So now he's a king of the castle. This is how he walks around the house now. He's a goofball, man.
That's
These
so
days,
good.
you know?
So going through commercialization with you, we had about 6 months from in between FDA approval and then needing to start selling this device in the marketplace to hospitals. And anyone listening to this podcast who has had an ounce of experience with launching new therapies in the medical device space knows the difficulty around bringing a new technology into a hospital. They know the difficulties of those 3 little letters known as VAC, VAC, right? And so what was that like for you? Now, it's 2019 still. It's not 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. I was actually with you.
Yeah.
When all hell broke loose in New Jersey and upstate New York in 2020. So let's not get there yet. But 2019, you've got a very important piece of dirt for the organization. You're the Northeast rep. You're the Northeast guy, not even a rep. You're the Northeast manager, dude in charge of the entire quadrant of the U.S. How did you go about each and every day? What were your goals? What were you thinking? And I also want to know, did you think we were crazy? Did you think we had any chance?
I just needed to see it work. The jury was still out, right? I'd seen it work in a couple of hypertension patients from, one of our clinical trials. When I began to see the results in these patients, I was like, okay.
Okay, but hold on. Because here's what we got to remember. You literally sold the first unit in the U.S. for the organization. You'll always have that claim to fame. You're numero uno. This is prior to you having any belief, any real experience for yourself. How did you go about getting these accounts ready when you've never seen it for yourself?
No, it's a great question. I think I relied heavily on the clinical team, right? We had guys like Matt Dagley, people like you have been, taking this from a clinical trial company through this process of now commercializing this technology. I think leaning on our, clinical educators and people who've been with the company 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, some people, leaning on them for their expertise, and also going to sites that had experience implanting this technology for our phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. So, I was just managing mainly logistics, I feel like, for the first couple of patients, just getting the puzzle pieces in place and hoping for the best. But, we've had a lot of headwinds, right, since the start.
Yeah, how hard is that grind? How hard is that lift at the start?
I always found it, if you're not asking them to stock 10 units or spend $250,000 or $500,000, if you're just asking them to try something, to try it out, it's not going to cost you, any capital, no stocking equipment, no capital expenditures. Many people, if they understand the concept, they'll take the small leap and check it out, dip their toe in the water. They believe in the science. I think the science is, it's directly in line with their current treatment options like GDMT, right? This is a device that reduces sympathetic overdrive, which is exactly what we're doing with GDMT, right? We have your ACE inhibitors, your beta blockers, your angiotensin converting enzymes, all these things. We're trying to stop this neurohormonal response. So in the beginning, we had people who were like, oh, I totally understand this. I got it. I want to try it. And, the 2 or 3 people like that in the Northeast, I clung to that. I said, all right, let's do it. And I always felt, getting the technology into VAC was easy, right? That was the easy part, right?
Yeah.
I could always get, sites to sign on the line and decide to want to move forward with it. But where the challenges, I found the hardest part was having, maintaining control, right? Sites would, sign on the dotted line and they'd say, Dan, all right, great. We'll call you when we have a patient. Oh, great. That's awesome. Thank you. 6 months later, I'm still waiting for the phone to ring. And I realize I've lost all control, right? And I'm putting the development of this Barrison program in the hands of someone who's never done it before, right? And these are like the learning curves in the very beginning where if I had the confidence and experience, or if we had consultants, right? You can't just find consultants like this who can write you a roadmap. This is a very unique niche type of environment we were working in. So did I, I was nervous to see how well it was going to work, or how well we could identify the best.
There had to be days, because you drove quite a bit. I remember approving your mileage. And so there had to be days you're driving home, New York Thruway, I-95. There had to be days and you're just like, F this. There's so many things I could be doing to make more money, that would be easier, that would give me better quality of life. There had to be those moments, right?
Yeah. The fear, what drove me? It was the fear of failing in the shadow of my previous company. Not because I wouldn't care what the other people would thought, but I left a lot on the table, with a pension, double match 401k, outstanding benefits, free diapers, free Similac. I mean, all these little perks from these companies that employ 100,000 people. You have air cover. You have air cover. You could have a bad year and you'll still be there, right? But here you have a bad quarter, so they're gonna find someone else, man. And like
hero to zero really fast.
Yeah. So like, what kept me engaged, right? Number one, the fear of failure. I think number two, an important thing was just the small little incremental wins, right? It was like, a lot of peaks and troughs, but a lot of times there's peaks. It's like golf, right? I'll shoot.
I was just gonna say, man, it
I'll shoot
sounds
110
just like that.
and I'll hit like 6 good shots the entire day, and yet I'll go back out 2 weeks later.
You go back out.
Optimistic,
I love that. We were thinking the exact same thing. That makes sense. This fear of failure, I think, is really important, and I want to kind of dig into that a little bit more, because what you're saying essentially, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it's this idea that it's not about, you listen to people on the internet, social media, your Tony Robbins-esque people, and they want to just say that, well, people aren't doing certain things because they're scared to fail, and that's kind of like they don't want to do something because there's a fear. And I don't know if I necessarily believe that the same way. What I believe, and I love that you just presented it that way, because you were excited to do something different. You felt unfulfilled. You were like, you weren't fearful. You were just kind of, all right, I'm into it. I'm going to go meet this guy in Ronkonkoma and I'm going to figure out what he has to say. But this is the beauty of drawing a line in the sand and making a decision and committing to something. Because then I do believe that fear of failure becomes real. That now it's legitimate. It's not just pie in the sky fear of the unknown bullshit, right? That's just this paralysis by analysis crap that, I mean, if you're in that camp, you've got a lot more going on up here that you need to work through. But I love the fact that you made this decision. You know what you stepped away from. You believed in your abilities and you believed in this therapy and being a part of this journey. And even though some of the days got tough, it was about you fearing failure for yourself because you wanted to show that you were the guy for this. And you also wanted to prove to yourself that you made the right decision and you could make this effective because you wanted to know and validate the decision that you made to step away from the sure thing.
Yeah, it's true. The fear of failure can easily be, the words can be moved around to failure is not an option. Right. And that's, as you were just talking, that was really what was going through my mind, was that failure isn't an option. And, I was put in situations that I've never experienced before, but I was going to figure them out. I was going to prove to myself that, I could get this thing off the ground. I could do it and do it well. Right. And I'm not going to crack or break in the process. Right. I'm not going to, unravel my whole family or make silly decisions. I think failure was an option. A lot of it was to prove to myself, can I handle one of the most chaotic, stressful, uncertain environments where so many variables are out of your control? Can I do it? And I was like, I can do this. I'll figure it out.
How many, because I do imagine there's a lot of medical device, pharmaceutical device reps that listen to podcasts like this, but how many, and I know where I'm coming from and what my thoughts are. I've done a lot of interviews. I've coached a lot of people in interviews. How many medical device sales reps out there truly understand the concept of failure not being an option? Do you think that that's really a thought that goes through the minds of most medical device sales reps?
Yeah. Well, what are the consequences of failing? Right. That's what I was thought, like, okay, I left a great company. So already, if I fail here, I've just sacrificed all of that, right? If I fail here, what's my mental state going to be like? It's like I went over 16 during the playoffs, right? And that's that. You need a psych consult after that. And I remember there were mornings where I would get up at 3:30 every morning, and I would get out. And this is like intra-COVID, right? Cold calling and cold emailing and trying to figure it out at the whiteboard, throwing so many things up there. I think it's the consequence of what you're left with if you do fail. I don't know. I think a lot of reps that I've been one of them, well, if I fail here, it's okay. I'll pivot to there and I'll be all right.
There's plenty of jobs out there. I've seen even at the company we were with, I've seen it happen all over. When you fail, you move on. Oh, well, I wasn't the right fit, or maybe just the environment wasn't right. Maybe you start talking shit on the company. Maybe they didn't like leadership. I've heard it all. But the truth of the matter is, one of the other things that I like to stress is this idea of 100% ownership of your outcomes. You mentioned controlling the variables you can control. If you truly focus on controlling the variables you can control, you'll find that a lot of the uncontrollable variables start to work themselves out in that process. But this idea that full ownership of the outcomes, no matter what happens, good or bad, you own it all. Yeah. And there's so few people. Heck, I even get concerned about being able to teach those concepts to my own kids. It's a real thing. You're constantly looking for reasons why you weren't able to achieve or hit the levels that you needed to hit with regard to your sales performance or whatnot. And you know this likely better than anyone is, my whole thing was always, I wanted to work with the rainmakers, not the weather reporters. And that there is a vast difference in those types of individuals. You see it every day, the people that just want to give you all of the reasons, all of the rationale as to why they didn't achieve success, why they weren't able to accomplish what they set out to accomplish. And they want to show that they are smart, they have awareness. This is why it didn't happen. The market's doing this. This person can't get the device. It doesn't matter. Full ownership. And I think you're someone that has embraced that through and through.
Yeah, the last thing I ever want to do is say, well, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't, and people would refer to me as a lone wolf, right? Like, Duff, how are you ever going to work with other people? Because you're a very good lone wolf. You work very, by yourself is when you perform the best. You got to learn how to work with people. And it's a trust issue. And I feel like there's so many variables, tangents, and avenues that you need to have full control over in this process. Is even from simple conversations with administration, C-suite, CFO, VP, and it's like, I don't trust many people to have these conversations. And a couple of these conversations go south, or a couple of things don't go the right way. I'm living here, right? I'm the one on the front line. These are my trenches. And if anybody's going to screw it up, it's going to be me. Unless I'm certain that I can call in, air cover, that I know they're going to hit their mark, I'm doing it myself. I'm going to figure it out myself. And then I think also like understanding, what your battlefield landscape looks like, what challenges you can and can't overcome, and what tools you have in the shed that you can call on, to ensure that you're going to be able to accomplish what you're trying to do. And I think, with us in the beginning, us being, you and I and our CEO at the time and our CFO, and, is learning, what strengths each one of you possess and what environments to utilize you in, right? Because I can do a pretty good job doing most things, right? But when it comes to, excellence and nailing and pinning down these real difficult conversations, the first 6 months we referred to, like, I was assessing the tools in my own shed at the time, right? And as well as checking out what was happening out in the battlefield. And I think it took all of us time to develop or sharpen our skills, right? Because we went from a clinical research trial company to a commercialized,
I think you bring up a really good point, Dan. And this is something that is so near and dear to my heart. You've heard me talk previously about a person's frequency or their zeros, how they present naturally, instinctually, okay? And then depending on the situation, they can go one way or the other. And at different phases of an organization, you do need different types in order to make things happen. I will go on record and I will say, if we didn't have your type in the Northeast, would not have been successful out of the gates in that endeavor, right? And fast forward, say 10 years from now, 5 years from now, who knows? You might be getting assessed by someone at the current organization you're with, whether it's this organization or your next organization, and they may say, yeah, that Dan, he's brash. He's a little bit too much of a lone wolf. He has real difficulty kind of explaining himself to others and making sure that other people are heard. And it's important to acknowledge that I always use football teams as a reference. And it's important to understand that you need different people in different positions. You can't have an entire team of quarterbacks. You can't have an entire team of linemen. And different people serve different things, and we should not go out of our way and work hard to suppress people's natural instincts where they thrive. As leaders, my job was to figure out how to utilize what you did excel in and what you were amazing at and make sure that you were providing that for the organization. Not spend my time trying to get you pigeonholed into something else that wasn't natural for you. Bring in someone else to do that type of stuff. I wanted Dan being Dan because someone needs to have the stones to do something that other people do not. And when you have an entire organization that just wants to color within the lines, especially early on, good luck trying to do anything remarkable, trying to do anything extraordinary. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah. It's, people say that, they'd say I'd be explosive, or I'd, like you said, be brash. This was the culmination and the result of intensely stressful days, being one person on the front line alone. And then, having almost like bell tower generals in a sense, and people who, really weren't certain of, the reimbursement environments that we were
Sure.
in. You'd go out one day and say one thing, and for a couple of months, and 3 months later, the narrative would change a little bit as we developed and learned more information. And there was no paved road. It was like 6 or 7 dirt paths. Right, we're trying to figure out which dirt path looked the best, and see what's it. And after a while, it was just like it'd become Fridays where I'd just be like, oh my God, I've had it. I am a fucking people person. Don't you see that? It was, it was a result of just, being alone. But at the time, though, I think everybody was in the same boat. Everybody's wearing 10 hats. So everybody's just trying to figure it out, right? I think we were all invested in all carrying as much weight as we possibly could. All on the verge of
all right.
One bad.
So here we are. It's basically 6 years. Almost to the day, right? Right? Like 6 years. Take yourself right now, Marty McFly, okay, in the DeLorean, back 6 years, 2019, I'm about to call you up. I'm about to have a conversation with you. You go and talk to your 2019 self. What do you say?
I would still do this, as crazy as it sounds. Yeah, it's fucked up. I know.
You'd still do it.
I still would do it.
You tell your 6 year younger self, just do it.
Yeah.
Why?
Truth is, like, because the device, the technology works incredibly well. And in the right patient type, it's amazing to watch, right? It's also when everybody doubts you.
Dan, there's plenty of good technologies out there. I get it. I sold it with you. I understand it's good technology.
You're
Forget
right.
that. You can go get another job with good technology. Why would you still do this?
I don't know, man. The technology is so unique. There's a couple of things. You know, I think we're at the infancy of what using a device like this can actually do to other disease states, which is very interesting. I don't think we've seen our best days yet either. January 1st, we're going to be losing our T code, which is a good thing to lose, right? We're going to go into a category 1 code, which is going to open up even more insurance options.
I can't wait. It might actually make the stock I purchased valuable at some point. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That's what I'm waiting for, right? So like if the song was over, right? Let's say that the music stopped today. No, I would say that I made a mistake, right? And I should have stayed where I was. But the music, it's not over, right? This is a grind. You see these movies, these stories about startups and their success and how quickly it happens, right? It happens over a 2-hour movie. It doesn't show you the 10 years in between the first clip and then the ending. And it is a taxing grind. To be naive and think that, oh, I'm going to sign on with this company for 5 years. And in 5 years, the stock's going to hit $200 and I'm going to retire with $10 million in the bank. It's not, it never happens. Look at NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA's going on 20, 24 years. This is in the 90s. These guys were developing this technology. And look where it is today, right? That's a unicorn, right? Yeah, I think I've set my expectations in line with what. Yeah, if I can reflect at the 10-year mark, I'd want to say that I made the right choice, the best choice. But if the music stopped today, I would say that play that track again, right? It's not over yet. Like we need to keep pushing forward. I think in was this 2025? I honestly think in 2029, which would be 10 years. I think looking back, I will say it's been a beautiful story to tell and a wild ride, a stressful ride. Hopefully I won't look like I'm 70.
Yeah, there is that, man. I tell everyone I looked like I was 22 before I stepped into the role managing you. So look, I'm gonna offer you a different outlook. I'm gonna offer you a different perspective. And I haven't had an opportunity to really voice this to you prior to this conversation right now. When I met you, you were a sales rep. I know you think you're a good sales rep. I know you think that you are the best person at doing that, but you were a sales rep working for a big company. You were a number at best. Okay? If you got ran over by a car, they would mourn you and replace you by that evening. Okay? What you've shown to yourself, forget others, what you've shown yourself is never-ending resilience, never-ending ability, and the know-how to figure things out and problem solve. Those 3 things right there, regardless of whatever happens, have set you up for whatever success you want in this life. Because no one can ever take away from you what you've grown into. You are now a mobilizer. You are now a creator. You are now a market developer. You are now a go-to-market strategist. You are now a launcher. And those things, those same patches cannot be sewn on to the shirt or the jacket of the average person that you will ever be competing with from this point forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always thought, if you drop me off in Idaho tomorrow, could I have the same impact in Idaho as I do here? Right. And I look back, right. And I guess 5 years ago, it was like, yeah, I'll be all right. I'm pretty friendly. I'll make friends. I'll smile. I'll figure out how to do what they do in Idaho. And, but now 5 years later, I feel like, the success or being able to do this and replicate it, I feel like really, no matter what kind of industry you put yourself in, I think it comes down to like data analytics, like understanding your environment and using the data around you to help formulate a plan, right? They say, in God we trust, and everything else there's data. And
That's
I
right.
feel that your confidence in the direction you're going is built upon the data that you have in front of you, right? So yeah, man, I think we've come a long way in 5 years. My perspective on how to get it done has also drastically changed.
So what would you have done different?
I wouldn't say. I think I did the best I could with the tools and the environment I was in. If I was to look back, if this was a brand new company starting out and they were, if they called me and they were like, "Hey, we're going to launch this new technology, whether it's neuromodulation, heart failure, or not," I would, how would you approach this? I would say have like a 1 month data session in it and accumulate all the data, all the different avenues, all the the potential speed bumps and hurdles, understand your insurance environment to a T. Your lowest hanging fruit, and this formulate plan that's actionable and also defensible. If you're getting called in front of your board and say, well, why are you doing this? Having data to back up all your decisions makes sense, right? Back then, but we didn't have it, right? How many other, you can't find consultants for what we were doing on every street corner. We were our own consultants, right? We were trying to navigate these waters ourselves. These things take time. I mean, I'm sure from your perspective, like when you were in the boardroom and you were meeting with the board and the leadership team back in 2020, and you're like, all right, well, how are we going to formulate a plan? What were those discussions like for you? Like, how did that go?
For me, so I think about this all the time. That's a great question. So part of me, so that was my first foray into being an officer in a company, commercial leader, having to present to the board, taking the company public. And I always felt as if I needed to go above and beyond to prove myself, to prove the validity of my approach, to prove the validity of my team and what they're doing. And so I probably felt compelled to always paint a rosy picture. And because we were able to deliver what we were able to deliver, all those financial quarters in a row, the story and the rosiness of that story kind of matched the results. I never wanted to be a conversation about the endless problems and difficulties that existed every single minute of every single day. I wanted there to be this understanding that I had the business figured out. I had a plan, and my team was going to execute to that plan, and we were going to deliver what we intended to deliver. But looking back, I don't know, because of also prior to going public is they had a limited amount of financing of cash on hand. And so we didn't have a lot of mess around time. There's companies out there right now, that medical device companies, that won't turn a profit for 10 years, and they're okay. Their valuations are to the moon, and they're just fine. It's not about turning a profit. It's not about EBITDA. The word EBITDA or the letters EBITDA never even come into play. It's about how much revenue can you generate. So I always felt that we needed to deliver a number, and we were always pressed against time. And look, it was that sense of urgency that allowed us to accomplish, that allowed you to accomplish the things that you were able to accomplish. Without that relentless sense of urgency that was there every single day, I don't think we would have had the same results. Now, is there fallout and collateral damage from that relentlessness? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It becomes only the strong survive. Only the people that are built and have the intestinal fortitude, back to that little bit of that sickness, if you will, to kind of navigate those processes and that type of speed to get things done. It's not, I want to say it's unhealthy, but there are certain people more apt to be able to handle those type of pressures and those type of situations.
Yeah. If you look at the turnover, right, of sales reps, right, you can't test someone on a piece of paper before they join the company. Whether or not they're going to be able to thrive in an environment like this. And I think that, unfortunately, there is in those last 5 years, there's been a lot of turnover.
Mm-hmm.
Reps just, they think they're getting into something that is, A, but it's really B. It's really kind of a shit sandwich, right? And you really got to hunker down and get it done. And some people are just, they can't even fathom the idea that this is what and they're gone. They're gone by in 3 months. I mean, how many of those have we had? And it looks poor from the outside, but from the inside, it's like, some people are just like, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? I think some great mentor used to say to me. And some people thrive in the opportunity to push themselves, and other people, they have different, things that they're trying to accomplish in their life, and this may not be their top priority. This isn't the job then, Yeah. So, looking back, if I was to do things differently, if I was to consult on a company getting out of the gate now, I would use as much data and try to find just people who have walked these roads before. Like, for example, like we had like our Levanovas, or we've had our Impulse Dynamics, and what other companies out there were kind of one-off startups with like a one-trick pony, kind of like a Barristan. Right? You had your CCM, Levanova, what else?
There's a few going through market right now. I mean, I see people talking about all these different companies, especially there's a conference out there called the LSI conference. So it's a lot of new CEOs or companies with ideas, engineering, the scientific side of things, looking for CEOs to commercialize or future commercialization. So there are a ton of companies. There's a lot more cash right now being available to some of these companies. So they are out there.
So back then when you were at the helm in 2020, 2021, 2022, how many interactions did you have and your team have with the CCMs of the world or other companies who were in similar?
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're asking. And this is where I'm probably not going to answer this the way that you want me to answer it or the way you would have thought I'd answer it. And so there were a few companies that we spoke to. And there were more companies that our CEO at the time wanted to speak to and get ideas. And the problem with doing that, and I think you said this before in the conversation, is that no two things are 100% aligned or alike. And so while it's good to get some insight and data, if you will, of what other people have experienced, I do caution copying and pasting anyone's approach to a go-to-market strategy, which is why if you're going to employ a consultant, to your point, if I were to consult with people on go-to-market strategies, I'd be looking for all the differences I possibly could of why this particular go-to-market strategy should be considered different than others in the past. So there was a company specifically, it dealt in the sleep apnea space, that we were very much being not aligned to, but compared to. And I'll never forget this. This was our first year of commercialization. This was the start of COVID. It's 2020. I do not recommend anyone launching a new cardiovascular therapy in a COVID year, especially when that cardiovascular company, to your point, has one product and no one has ever heard of you. And we spent the majority of that year kind of just getting ourselves prepared, doing role plays, video conferencing, making sure that we had all the messaging down. You and I had definitely had some combative spats over Zoom of whose role play was better, whose presentation was better. And about 3/4 through the year, maybe a little less, maybe like 2/3, I remember the CEO coming to me and saying, well, Respicardia did $1 million in their first year. We're not at that run rate. So we're not doing as well as them. So maybe we should start to listen to their ideas more. And I said, okay. So $1 million is the mark. It's on. Let's go. So I guess the reins are off and there's no more restraints. And my team can now travel and get out there and start implanting this device. And I think we had 4 months left of the year and we had to generate $1 million of business. And I want to say that we came pretty damn close, if not right on $1 million in that first year. I think 90% of that was in the month of December.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think I probably did 9 implants. I don't know what the revenue is for that. What 9 times 3 is what, 270,000. A team in Florida or a guy in Florida, and we had, a guy in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We're pulling equal weight by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. And despite the environment, it's a miracle that we're that we're here today. But, I wish that you did get a longer runway, right? I think that these companies, like you had said, they're not expected to be profitable within 10 years, right? And setting the expectations up front, can dictate how much,
Yeah, you can do some damage in the process, and not just internally, externally with customers by needing to consistently squeeze that lemon,
oh
right?
my God, right.
And so you're right. I wouldn't have, the crew we had together, the guys and the girls that were the cornerstone infrastructure of the sales organization at the company, if we had a longer runway, if we had a longer timeline of expectation to certain level of achievement, nobody would have taken their foot off the gas, because all of you guys and girls wanted to make cash. You all wanted to finish first. You're competitive as hell. There was no way you're just going to slow down for the sake of slowing down.
Right.
But in the process, we may have cracked a few less eggs or a few fewer eggs in making that omelet that may have helped with a little bit more of a ramp up.
Yeah. Yeah. To that point, I mean, there were some specific instances where, we would, you're looking at the clinical environment you're working in, and you're also looking at the timeline of expectation, right? And it's how do you balance the two? I think now, as a result of having just wanting to get things done faster and just to meet company expectations and help grow, right? You crack quite a few eggs. And now what I've learned is that if you take your time to build the omelet right, and you sacrifice upfront a couple of bucks, a couple of implants, what you're creating is a foundation for something that can grow, right? And this is, also where it's been and what it's come to is that it was almost a smash and grab type of, environment we were trying to operate in, in combination with COVID and then the Silicon Valley, situation and the outcomes of the clinical trials. And I mean, there were so many like peaks and troughs with the stock price that it was so stressful. And people would say, well, Duff, why are you still here? What are you doing? Like, where are you going to go? I'm like, I'm not leaving. This device works. This is all noise, right? We're going to get through all this. Just keep your head down, right? And easy to say, but a lot easier to believe because I knew it to be true, right? I wasn't here for a month. I've seen all this from the beginning, and
if anyone's going to have insight into how things are going, it's going to be you.
Yeah, like if the stock price dropped, let's 50% tomorrow,
easy.
Yeah.
Okay, no mas.
That would be it. But my stomach is conditioned to it, right? It's a lot of headwinds, and I think it's 5-6 years of taking bruises and a lot of failures, right? I think we've been able to see what really works, and we've shifted our focus. I'm just praying that January 1st, the reimbursement situation.
That's going to be a big win. So there was a method to the madness as well, and you did kind of hit on it. So talking about the speed, while I mentioned, selfishly, I would have loved a little bit more runway in the process, would have made everyone's life a little bit easier. But here's the thing you got to remember: it's like training for something, for like a big event. If you're training to do a bunch of pull-ups, the best way to train, if you got to do 100 pull-ups, are you training lifting your body weight 100 times? Or are you attaching one of those belts where you can dangle a weight from and adding 10, 15 pounds to yourself and doing the pull-ups that way, and not just doing 100, doing 120, doing 130, doing 150. So it's about making the initial go, the practice, if you will, really difficult, making the practice harder than the game. Because at some point, you mentioned, Dan, that at some point it will get easier. The coding will change, reimbursement will catch up, and it will become easier. That's a different phase of any company when it gets into becoming more, not commoditized, but just more daily routine kind of procedural treatment algorithm kind of practice. And having all of that practice that each of the cornerstone vital reps have done over the years, you're going to be able to set a better pace for new reps coming in that would have no idea the level of effort and the sense of urgency that you do need to be able to work in order to do something remarkable and extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so it's going to pay dividends at some point, as long as all of you are still there and able to share your account. You guys are the elder statesmen. If you're talking about church, I don't know how, if you're a religious guy, but you've always got the elder statesmen in the church. And they're probably there, any of these new churches, they were there when they were probably in a parking lot somewhere and laying out all the chairs every Sunday morning before the service, long before they get into these big arenas and rock shows and everyone thinking that it's always just been like this. It takes you back to the whole thing about, you mentioned that people just want to talk about the success of the startups. There's a quote that I was thinking of when you were talking about that. And I'm going to paraphrase. It's basically that everyone's looking at the pictures from the top of the mountain. They're acknowledging the view. It's a breathtaking view. They can't believe how beautiful it is. But ain't nobody doing postcards of those first few miles through the trees and all the crap that doesn't look anywhere near as far as the payoff at the top of the mountain. It's just human nature. It's how we're built. We all love the success story.
Yeah.
After they've achieved success. The look back is amazing. Oh my gosh, look how hard this person worked. Can you believe it? But it was always just going to happen. You could tell it was going to happen. Bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. Nobody knows. You are a failure. Right up until that second, you are not. Okay? Yeah. And you need to learn how to embrace that. That needs to become a part of you.
Well, if you remember, we would do something great, right? We feel like we've achieved success, whether or not you start a new program, you got 10 packs, or 10 devices sold, put on the shelf. You'd be like, Dan, take a deep breath and enjoy that for that one breath. And now forget about it, right? Because now this is the next monumental mountain you have to climb, right? And it's
my God. I was such an asshole. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, dude. I apologize.
No, the funny thing was, though, even after you get 10 devices on the shelf, you'd say, well, when's the first case? And literally I'd have 2 breaths. I'd be like, Craig got 10 units on the shelf. And you'd be like, well, when is the first case, man? And I'd be like, all right, let's go. Okay. But, look, I think you can't, I don't think we can stress enough, or I don't think you can teach it. I don't think you can write it in a book. The confidence from people like me only comes because of the failures I've endured from the beginning. And these are all learning lessons. I wouldn't even say they're failures, but to me, in my own personal mind, these were failures where these programs didn't launch the way I wanted to. My expectations are very high. Well, why did it fail? Right. And these are, it took 15 failures, right? And each one of these failures these are 5 years of not meeting my own expectations and goals. And I think, where I think my value comes in today is by speaking from confidence and launching these types of programs and doing the right thing to identify the best patients, to instill in your, the centers, the IDNs, the hospitals you're working with, that you're there to help grow their service line, enhance their offerings, and provide a better patient care experience, focused on, better outcomes. And this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. And, I think the best data is driven from trial and error. We've tried this 55 times this one way, and it doesn't work, right? These are the goals. So I think, I think the next 5 years are certainly going to be brighter than the previous 5. But in a weird way, I think that I enjoyed these last 5 because it was so hard, right? It's almost like you're training for the Murph, or you're training for a marathon. Being able to accomplish that marathon or do the Murph and get that done, it feels amazing because you put so much time in to try to accomplish it, right? And you've tweaked it and you've focused on it, you thought of it, sleepless night. So, in 5 years, I hope I'm still here. I hope that I'm still alive and smiling. But I hope that we can continue to learn from all these previous failures. But I think we've been given a little bit of.
It's all you can do, Dan. I mean, that's the gift. That's the gift right there. If you're not failing, and you've heard me say this, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not finding your edges, if you're not eating shit every now and again, what are you really doing? And it's when you fail, when you lose, you're given an opportunity to learn. You're given an opportunity to galvanize yourself. And that's always been a big thing of mine. Galvanizing yourself, insulating yourself to be able to embrace those losses, embrace those times when you didn't succeed, you didn't hit the mark the way you initially intended. And it's from those experiences that get you better and better and better. Man, the worst thing would have been if we just had automatic success. Anything in life, you just have easy automatic success. What does that really teach you? What does that get you ready for? Because life isn't always going to be like that. There's going to be another mountain to climb. There's going to be something else that gets in the way, that's going to be standing in between what you want to achieve and where you are right now. And if you do not have those lessons, if you do not have those experiences, you will fail when it matters most. And that is what the insulation is all about. That is what the exercises have all been about. So this is why when I say, how have you changed over the last 5 years? When you were initially a sales rep, sure, you solved problems. But now I believe that there is nothing that can get in your way that you can't somehow figure out, that you can't somehow overcome, that you can't somehow just not just fix or not just answer, but learn how to get around it and use it to achieve unfathomable success. And that is why I'm so proud to have worked with you, and is why I'm so proud to be speaking with you and honored to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. This is like a weekly. We should do this weekly. I feel like we're in the same room. You feel like we're in the same room?
Yeah. So let me wrap this one up.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Yeah, let's make this good.
All right, Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Eyes Wide, the podcast. I was very excited about it. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed the conversation, not only just kind of rehashing some of the experiences we've had together, but really more so about just seeing what you've grown into and having a chance to really talk to the Dan Duffy that is now. Seeing someone's metamorphosis is always something that's, to me, so impressive and amazing to behold, watch, see, view. And so thank you so much for being a part of this. In the spirit of what it is we do at Eyes Wide Podcast, this life is what you make of it. The future you is waiting to meet the current you. Continue to work to find your tomorrow in today and keep the promises you make to yourself. Until we meet again, eyes wide. See everything. Goodbye.